Welcome back to Grim and Whim. Today we're going to be looking at a strange but true story of a 23-year-old woman who decided to stab someone to death out of curiosity. Yes, you heard me right. She stabbed a complete stranger over 100 times for no other reason other than her being curious to see if she could not only murder someone, but also to see if she could get away with the crime. Her name is Jung Yoo-jung, a South Korean woman who made a series of devious and horrific decisions that ended in the death of an innocent woman. Quick trigger warning, as this case is definitely on the darker side. But without further ado, let's go ahead and dive into this bizarre story. So before getting into the actual case, let's start by looking into what we know about Jung Yoo-jung. So apparently she is a self-proclaimed true crime lover, and for whatever reason, she decided to make her interest in true crime into a disturbing reality. She was 23 years old at the time of this murder, and she plotted to murder a tutor on May 26, 2023. According to the Busan police, Jung Yoo-jung was unemployed and living with her grandfather, and she was basically a recluse. She spent a lot of time on the internet and a lot of time at her local library checking out books to do research about how to hide a body and basically pull off the perfect crime. Her crime was entirely premeditated, and she clearly had a sick fascination with murder that went beyond what is healthy or normal. She found her victim after contacting more than 50 people, most of whom were women, and she contacted them on a tutoring app. And she posed as the mother of a high school student who was in need of tutoring in the area of English. And she would ask the tutors whether or not they did tutoring out of their homes. She spent months searching. So when I say that this woman premeditated this murder, I mean she premeditated it. She put a lot of time and thought into this murder, and it just really goes to show how sick and messed up her mind really was. And after spending months searching for the perfect victim, she finally found someone, and this was a 26-year-old woman who agreed to do tutoring sessions from her home. The victim's name has not been released to the public, at least not at this time. So going forward, I will be referring to her as either the victim or the tutor. According to police records, Jung arranged to come to the tutor's home for an English study session. And because Jung was fairly petite and looked quite young, she was able to pass as a ninth grade student when she showed up at the tutor's home. And she even went as far as wearing a schoolgirl uniform that she ordered online. And when Jung went to the unsuspecting tutor's home, she ended up stabbing this woman over 100 times until she succumbed to her wounds and passed away. And what's so crazy about this stabbing is typically when in, true crime cases, when somebody stabs someone repeatedly, typically this is somebody that they know. Typically stabbing someone over and over again or strangling them, those are typically methods that people use during a crime of passion. And what's so bizarre about this case is that Jung repeatedly stabbed this woman just over and over and over again until she died. And she didn't have any connection to this person. She did not know her at all. And it was just a random person that she picked on this, find a tutor app. And it's just crazy to me to think that, something like this could very easily happen when you have, apps, kind of meetup apps, whether it's like a dating app or, finding a plumber or, whatever. It's crazy that, you could let someone into your house. You may have talked with them online and, arrange, to meet with them and, work with them. And then they just turn on you and complete this crazy crime of passion. It's just so scary and definitely makes you, a bit more on edge with meeting people on the internet. After Jung killed this woman, she left the tutor's home and bought bags and bleach and then returned to dismember the body. And basically, she cut up the body to fit it into a suitcase so that way she could dispose of it and, get away with what she believed was the perfect crime. Jung also cut off the fingers of the tutor, and she was basically trying to make it more difficult to identify her remains. And after she did all of this, she stuffed the remains into a suitcase, then took a taxi to the Nak Dong River, and then disposed of the evidence in a secluded park. Jung really felt like she had it all planned out, and to pull off this gruesome crime, what she tried to do was she attempted to make it look like this tutor had simply disappeared by keeping her victim's ID, wallet, and phone. And luckily, thanks to a very diligent cab driver, Jung's plan began to unravel. And so the driver, and they don't really state his name in any of the police records, but this taxi driver basically did the right thing. If you see something, say something. And he noticed Jung's incredibly suspicious behavior and called the police to report it. And he basically said, this passenger is acting very shady, and he believed that she had dumped a blood-stained suitcase in a remote area by the river. And luckily, the police were able to quickly apprehend her and had her in custody and off of the streets. However, while she was in police custody, Jung's behavior just continued to be very bizarre and unhinged. Following her arrest, she initially told the police that she had simply moved the victim's body after she was killed by someone else. And the police obviously did not buy this, and Jung wasn't able to provide the police with any type of name or identifiers about who actually killed this person. So then Jung decided to switch her tactics, and she said that she only accidentally killed the tutor due to a heated argument. However, the police were not buying this story either. I mean, you don't accidentally stab someone 100 times. And it just didn't make any kind of sense. And nothing that she was saying was adding up. And so her family, began to pressure her and basically said, you need to tell the truth. So finally, seeing that really she hadn't outsmarted anybody, Jung confessed to the murder, and she actually blamed it on her interest in true crime content. Jung Yoojung was incredibly obsessed with true crime and true crime TV shows and books. And, she especially liked books about deranged serial killers and things like that. And she wanted to carry out her own perfect murder just to see if she could pull it off. And I try to be objective and really limit my opinions in true crime cases. I do my best to try to stick to the facts. But in this case, I just have to say, Jung's reasoning for murdering someone is just ridiculous. And it's just so stupid. Like, I just can't even think of another word. It doesn't make any kind of logical sense. But clearly, this woman is not in a logical state of mind. And like I said, while I try to be objective, my opinion is that Jung is basically an awful person. There's never really a good reason to murder someone, but to murder someone so viciously and then just blame it on, oh, but I really love true crime, that doesn't make any type of sense. And it's just a ridiculous excuse. And I am obviously a lover of the true crime genre. I have always been fascinated with true crime, specifically forensics. I've always been interested in forensics. And I literally made Grim and Whim to explore my interest in not only true crime, but also, paranormal, phenomenon and, bizarre stories. And I'm really into folklore and things like that. But despite the fact that I love, true crime and I love, horror movies and I love violent video games, um, even though I enjoy that type of content, I can separate reality from the content that I consume. And sadly, not everyone is able to do that. And probably like many of you, I'm sure many of you listening or watching, I'm sure you might also have grown up, watching shows like CSI or Bones or Law and Order, things like that. I think a lot of America and, certainly across, the globe, most people consume some form of true crime content, even if it's like just the news or, like TV shows or documentaries. I mean, most people consume true crime to some degree, but not everyone does this type of thing where they truly believe that they're destined to murder someone and get away with it. And the tricky thing with the true crime genre, as much as I love true crime content, I really don't believe in sensationalizing true crime stories or hyping up serial killers. There's been a lot of that, I feel like, in recent years, movies and TV shows really um, exploiting victims and then seemingly almost praise serial killers, which is just so bizarre to me. I know like with Dahmer and Ted Bundy, a lot of people have, a fascination with them. And there's a difference between having a fascination with someone and being interested, in their mind and, and actually praising them and, thinking, oh, they're just like this genius and so interesting. And some people even have like crushes on serial killers. And that to me is just, ugh, it's so gross. But what is scary about this genre is that sometimes it will reach a person like Jung Yoo-jung, who, for whatever reason, can't separate content from reality. But I am going to go ahead and get off my soapbox now because I really could go on and on about the exploitative nature of true crime, but we'll save it for another time and let's go ahead and get back into the case. So, Jung did go to a trial, and the court learned about her devious plan to find her victim and how she just wanted to try murder out. And the way she talks about murdering someone and like dismembering the body and hiding the remains and all this, she talks about it and describes it like somebody trying, a keto diet. Like, oh, I kind of want to try keto, or, I kind of want to try, being vegetarian. The way she discussed taking someone's life, ending someone's life for no reason other than just because she was curious. It's just so very clear that this woman is evil and has no right to be out in the public where she could possibly hurt someone again. And while prosecutors had initially requested the death penalty, Jung pleaded for a more lenient sentence, and she claimed that she was suffering from hallucinations and other mental issues, none of which were actually ever, reported by any doctors or any healthcare providers. But she claimed that she was suffering from, hallucinations. And she said that she wasn't in her right mind when she stabbed her victim to death, which obviously, I don't think people in their right mind kill other people. However, according to court documents, the crime was very obviously carefully planned and carried out. And so, whether or not she was, dealing with a mental illness, you can't plead insanity when you are planning out this murder for months or even longer. Who knows how long exactly, she was planning this murder. We just know that she was on this app looking for her victim for several months, but she could have been planning this for maybe even longer. And so the court found it incredibly difficult to accept her claim of any type of mental or physical disorder. And ultimately, Jung was sentenced to life in prison on November 24th, 2023. I'm not really big on the death penalty. I'm not going to get into the debate now, but I definitely don't think that this person deserves to be walking the streets, even with ever being on parole, with a, parole officer. And I'm not exactly sure how in, South Korea, how exactly parole works there, but I really think that she needs to be locked away and kept away from the public. And while we don't know the identity of the victim of this case, at least not at this time, I truly hope that her loved ones find comfort knowing that her killer is off the streets and hopefully will remain off the streets. And with all that being said, thank you for listening to this case. Hopefully it is, just a reminder about how precious life truly is and how it can be taken so quickly and oftentimes without any reason. And it just seems so, it's just so frustrating that, here's this 26-year-old woman who was, trying to make money, tutoring and trying to help children, better their education. And to think that someone took advantage of this type of person's spirit and her kindness and just decided to kill her. It's so frustrating and it's so strange. And I just hope that we learn from this case and are safer and more diligent when meeting people online. I think that's the main takeaway from this story, is that sadly there are deranged people like Jung, and sometimes evil people will do evil things. And it's sort of a sad reality that we have to accept as human beings on this earth. And so I hope that going forward, everybody who was, listening to the story, I hope that you all stay safe, and I hope that you learn something. And I will see you in the next episode. Thank you so much for joining me. It's goodbye for now, but I hope to haunt you again soon.